Hello and welcome back. It is now Monday, May the 20th. Happy Victoria Day, long weekend. As you can see, we are still good and wet out here. It is currently just lightly raining. I'd say since Friday we've gotten between 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 inch in most of the gauges out this way, mostly just due to thunderstorms. There also was some light hail over by Barron's, so I'm going to go check that out today, make sure we don't have any damage. So let's see what we're seeing in the fields. Oh, we got lots of barley coming up here. This is mostly 2-leaf stage now, so we're probably, 10 to 14 days away from herbicide timing. And we also have a big flush of volunteer canola coming up in this field here. So it's a good time to be checking some of these cereal crops here now that we've had lots of moisture on them. Start looking for diseases like scald and blotch and stuff like that. If it's getting off to an early start, it might be worthwhile throwing in a fungicide in the tank. We certainly have the moisture potential right now for a good crop, so we might as well protect it if we're seeing any issues. This could prove to be a very interesting week. For the most part, most of my customers are finished seeding all of their cereals, so we're in a good place as far as that goes. Herbicide timing on those cereals is going to be coming up relatively soon. However, a lot have not finished seeding corn or canola yet. Those are typically the last things seeded, and with the moisture conditions, time in the field has been extremely limited. And I know, especially for canola, with the crop insurance deadline coming up on the 31st, really we're only 11 days away from, not being able to seed canola anymore and have it insured. So this week is going to definitely be stressful while we hopefully get a break in the weather long enough for, 4 to 5 good days of seeding, which is what a lot of guys are going to need to finish off. Well, this power pole up by Carmangay seems to have been a victim of yesterday's lightning storm we had up this way. It blew shrapnel all across the road, but the pole itself is still standing. This piece I found on the other side of the road stuck right into the ground like a lawn dart. So yeah, pretty cool. A little dangerous though. Well, with these low nighttime temperatures approaching freezing and lower daytime temperatures too in the single digits, we are starting to see germination and emergence is slowing down on some of these fields. Let's see if I can pull this guy up here. Oh, shot him way over there. But things are starting to move. You can see this barley here. This was seeded last week. You can see it has germinated, but it's not close to the surface yet, but it's getting there. This barley field is one where I'm finding most of the cutworms, although they are, for the most part, just dingies, and they're just doing some soil surface feeding. But I thought I'd come out here today, kind of try something new. So I got a thermal camera from my iPhone to monitor how my basement is leaking water. And I thought it'd be kind of fun to take this out and see what it can do in the field here today. Thought it would be kind of interesting if I could search for cutworms using thermal technology. Okay, so here is a spot where I can see there's some cutworm feeding right here anyways, basically. Hopefully that shows up on both cameras. Scrape around, see if we can find a cutworm. Oh, there we go, right there. Now does he show up on the infrared? So I gotta move my camera here a little bit. Huh. No, he does not really. He's right here. So kind of makes sense because he is he's cold-blooded, so he's going to be basically the same temperature as the soil. So that's interesting to see. But no luck. Thermal camera doesn't do you any good trying to dig for cutworms. Here in this field, you can see we had a pretty good problem with downy brome. There is quite a thick patch of it. We hit this with a good shot of glyphosate as well as DB878 and crimson, and we're having pretty good effect on it, especially when you compare it to the check strip. So it looks like there was maybe a little bit of a problem with overlap or GPS problem here, but we got about a 6-foot wide strip of unsprayed brome, and this durum has been seeded and it's just starting to emerge. So this should be interesting strip to monitor this year. As the seeding season wears on, you can see the fields are getting dirtier and dirtier. This field was going into canola. It got sprayed just a couple days ahead of seeding, so it's been sprayed for, I want to say, about 5 days now. So you can really start to see some of the off color, some of these grassy weeds. This is mostly all volunteer cereals. We still have a little ways to go before any crop emerges. This was just seeded into canola a few days ago, so I'm sure if I scrape around in here in this nice wet soil, we should be able to easily find some seeds like right here, and they look like they're just starting to crack and germinate, so it'll be a few days before we see emergence yet.
Now with all these excellent moisture conditions, we certainly do not need to worry about seeding our canola as deep as we did last year, where I was telling guys to go down to 3/4 of an inch or more to get into the moisture. Now that is really not a problem. One of the fun things about checking fields in the spring is finding all the bird nests. So here you can see we got 4 nice little marbled eggs. I'm not sure exactly what species this is. I did not see the bird when it left this nest, but it very well could be something along the lines of a killdeer. I'm thinking these are a little bit too big to be sparrow eggs. Well, this wheat field here looks a little bit weather beaten. We did have some pretty severe thunderstorms on the weekend at some points in some areas, and I think this was one of them. You can see we have a lot of damaged and bent and wrecked leaf material, so these plants are still pretty small. They're going to grow through this with very minimal delay, so I'm really not too worried about this one.
Here behind me, you can see we have a cornfield that has not been worked, sprayed, or seeded. It is in the same boat as many others. I have started getting lots of questions in the last week about this. When is it too late to plant my corn? Well, in this case, this farm, we're out here to the west. It's common to use a little bit shorter season varieties like Pride 1027 is one of my particular favorites out here. As long as we get that in the next week or so, by the end of the month, we should be off to a pretty decent start. We should not have any issues. But if you're growing longer season varieties like 1047 or some of the Pioneers or Mazex, then you really need to get those in the ground here this week. If you start pushing that out into early June, we're going to really be extending that season out into some dangerous frost territory in the fall. So as far as that goes, that's my answer for that. Hopefully it clears up enough we can really get some acres done of corn this week. Wednesday morning now, I'm down by McGrath, and it is pretty good and wet down here. My growers down here tell me that it has pretty much rained multiple times a day for the last week, so not a whole lot has been done, but you can sure see behind me the fall rye is really appreciating it. It is an absolutely beautiful crop. It is now over knee high and coming along pretty good for the most part. We're hitting the flag leaf stage now. You can see on this guy, that flag leaf is just emerging here, and you can feel that head in the stem right there. So we're, probably still, 10 days or so-ish away from having any flag emergence in here. This is going to be going for grain, not for silage. So I think we are going to wait for head emergence in here, and we are going to hit this with Miravis Ace. Try to get some of the ergot under control so we can have the best grain sample we can aim for. Some of these fields down here, like this barley field, are so soggy. We've got dead patches forming where water has been sitting or running for extended periods of time. It's basically just drowned the poor little seedlings out. Most little seedlings and stuff like this barley, they really cannot stand to have their roots in a saturated zone of water for much more than 48 hours without seeing some sort of damage. So it's definitely starting to take a toll in some of these fields. Thursday morning now, and it feels like for the first time in a long time we didn't get any rain overnight here, at least. I know south of Lethbridge there was a fair bit of rain in some places yesterday, as well as farther west out in the foothills. But right here by Nobleford there was no rain last night, so we are able to get into the field here today. This field, we will hopefully get a few acres of canola done today. You can see we do have some downy bromine stuff in here too, so it's getting sprayed as well. And yeah, we'll see how things go. The forecast is for thunderstorms again today, so we'll see what happens. This field is having a hell of a flush of wild oats at the moment. As you can see, it has been manured and worked, and now we are seeing what happens when you disturb all that wild oat seed. It is flushing like a madman now that it has been watered, and because it has not been seeded yet, it has no competition at all. So we are going to have to get in here, give this a spray. I think we're actually going to hit this with Focus, try to get a little bit of residual control on this because we are going into wheat. One thing I always love about barley in comparison to wheat is just how dramatic it can be. Out here taking a look at some barley, you can see we've got some really good yellow leaves here. When we pull on this guy, we can see he has been chewed off and absolutely shredded by a wire worm. So barley, once again, really good for showing this. It yellows off, looks super, super dramatic. But wheat tends to just kind of go off color and disappear, so it's a little bit harder to find that damage. You can see on this one here, you can even see tunnel where it was chewed through at one point earlier. This one here looks like we've got some subsurface pruning, so keep an eye out for this. Even though this seed is treated, wireworms will still feed on it a little bit before they pick up enough of a dose of the stress shield or the neonic in order to go dormant for a little while. Well, it's a beautiful Friday morning now. We are already back to seeding. We did have some showers of rain last night, but it wasn't anything major. To the east of here, apparently east of Picture Butte, there was some pretty heavy thunderstorms and hail last night, so I'm sure those guys won't be back at it today for a while. But the weather forecast is looking a little bit better with some higher daytime temperatures in the next week, although we do have the risk of thunderstorms basically continuously. Well, I am still not finding any nymph grasshoppers, so I haven't found any emergence up here by Barrens at all yet, but there is some reports coming in from other areas, such as Dunmore, where Mallory has found some, as well as down by Milk River. I've heard rumors of some grasshopper nymphs being found, so keep an eye out for that. Also keep an eye out for rust. I've been hearing rumors that rust is being found out in the Tabor area already to the east of me, so keep an eye out for that. It's pretty visually distinctive and can spread rapidly in cool and moist conditions, so definitely something to keep an eye out for in the next couple weeks. Well, I think that'll be it for this week. It should be an exciting couple of days here. If we get another 4 or 5 days of decent weather and some drier conditions, we should, for the most part, finish off seeding across most of my geography. Most guys are only just a couple days away from finishing. In the meantime, fields like this barley here behind me are rapidly approaching herbicide timing, so I think we're going to start to see some herbicide recommendations going out as early as next week. Let's take a quick look here. So you can see for the most part this barley is at 2, sometimes pushing 3 leaf now. So once we really get up into that 3-4 leaf stage on average, we're going to be hitting the herbicide timing. As you can see in this field, we've got a really good flush of volunteer canola in here as well. So got to get those guys taken care of.